Hello, I'm Ashutosh Varshney, and this video is based on my column for the print. The column was on the uh, revision of electoral rolls in Bihar. The Election Commission of India has announced that only those who can prove their citizenship will be allowed to vote in the forthcoming state assembly elections. There's nothing wrong in stating the principle, a very important principle, that only citizens can vote. But the way in which citizenship is to be established and the list of documents that will be required would lead to a substantial disenfranchisement, especially of many underprivileged citizens of Bihar. So, what in principle is an inclusionary idea, namely citizenship, will in practice become an exclusionary device in the coming weeks and months unless stopped by the Supreme Court. How inclusionary is the idea of citizenship and when was it born? I'd like to start with that and then come up with some instances in history when citizenship was badly truncated through voting. In modern politics, a great distinction is often drawn between the idea of subjects, praja, and the idea of citizens, nagrik. Subjecthood basically marked the polities of the pre modern era. Kings had subjects whose privileges and entitlements depended on royal blessings, Raja ki kripa. In contrast, citizenship, the idea of citizenship, was born with the American and French revolutions of the late 18th century. Citizenship stood for equal membership in a political community. Citizenship rights did not depend and do not depend on royal wishes. In the 20th century, as more and more polities became democratic, though of course not all did, voting increasingly became the lifeblood, or universal franchise became the lifeblood of citizenship, especially after the Second World War, virtually all over. Have there been instances in history when the inclusionary idea of citizenship was severely curtailed? Let me turn now to history, and we should keep these historical examples in mind as we think about the implications of what the Election Commission is trying to do in Bihar. The best known case of citizenship truncation is the American South during 1880s and mid 1960s for roughly 8.5 decades. After the Civil War between the largely Republican led North and Democrat led South ended in 1865, the 14th Amendment of the US Constitution gave Black Americans citizenship for the first time. They were slaves before that, not citizens. And the 15th Amendment gave Black adult males the right to vote. And by 1873-74, 84 to 85% of Southern Blacks had registered to vote. After 1876, roughly 10 to 12 years after the end of the Civil War, Democrats started returning to power in southern states. And one of their biggest political objectives was to deprive Blacks of their voting rights. How did they do it? By developing literacy tests, by instituting poll taxes or election taxes, and by demanding various other documents. The literacy rate of Black Americans was very low, and their incomes were very low, so they could not afford to pay the poll taxes that were necessary for voting. As a result, a vast majority of Southern blacks lost their voting rights, dropping from 84 to 85% in the mid 1870s to a mere 4 to 5% in 1904, 1905. Only in 1965 did universal franchise finally return to the United States of America. Election Commission's plans about Bihar have quite a few similarities. The basic similarity, and a very big surprise, is that the onus of registering voters used to be always the responsibility of the government in India, and that onus is now being shifted to citizens as in the United States. Citizens have to step forward and supply proof of their citizenship in order to vote according to the Election Commission. The assumption of India's founding fathers was that the poor citizenry would not have the literacy or the capacity to step forward to register to vote. Government would therefore reach out to the poor with its vast resources and its huge machinery, reach out to the poor and register them as voters. The second similarity has to do with literacy. Bihar is among the least literate states of India. And for the illiterate citizens to provide documents of their citizenship, uh, birth certificates, matriculation certificates, etc., um, defies any sense of reasonable expectations. It is extremely difficult for the low income and vastly illiterate citizenry to provide such documentation to a government office. The problem is compounded by the fact that the government of India issues no single citizenship document. Very few Indians, including those who are literate and have reasonable incomes, have birth certificates or passports, um, and and the illiterate, of course, would not have the matriculation certificate. Citizenship was always inferred from a variety of documents in India. Then the long lasting practice was that if a citizen said they were a citizen and would like to vote, they were assumed to be one, they were presumed to be one, unless challenged by others and issued a notification to try to solve the problem of ineligible voters, which is what the Election Commission is trying to do, to solve the problem of ineligible voters. But to solve it via a documentation process that they have listed, for which citizens are responsible, is to actually inflict an exclusion. Which communities will be disenfranchised as a result of this exercise? Most of Bihar's poor are Dalits, Muslims, and lower OBC. The electorate, therefore, will be disproportionately based among the upper caste and upper OBC. Voting data shows, as we know, that these are also the communities, upper caste and upper OBCs, that heavily vote for the BJP. The effect of the new documentary process that the Election Commission has laid out as necessary, therefore, will tilt the scales in favor of the BJP. Fair and inclusive elections have been a well known hallmark of Indian democracy. India needs to return to it. Citizenship, an inclusive modern political idea and principle, is being weaponized by the Election Commission to exclude citizenry, the marginalized citizenry. in practice. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.